How's everybody doing tonight? It's the time again. I already said that part. We're doing Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, and I'm your host, Jason. And of course, it feels very good to do an episode about Final Fantasy, the flop of
We
a
picked
movie.
it for you, pal. We picked it just for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Because
hope you feel special.
This is our month of animated features for not necessarily children. We started with Akira, and then Tetsuo, and then last week we did Princess Mononoke, and this week we've done Final Fantasy Spirits Within, and boy howdy, what a relic of a film this is.
What's the definition of a relic?
Old,
Like
dusty,
dusty,
no longer relevant.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for analytical purposes.
I'm somewhat of a relic now. I'll be 37 this year, which is
I'm somewhat of a relic myself.
yeah, okay, you said the thing. But that's good action that we did this, because I haven't witnessed this movie in quite some time, and I actually get to do the thing that Kaylin gets to do every week.
Ooh,
And
you
I
beat
have
me.
a physical copy of this. There
Nice.
are actually two.
Is that not open?
No, it is.
Oh, okay.
It is. It actually has two commentary tracks on it, but
Did you listen to both of them?
No, I was pressed for time.
I haven't listened to any of them.
Watched the movie today after work. I no longer have a job that allows me to watch movies while I work. So it's gonna be either I watch it on Tuesday or I watch it right before the podcast.
Mhm.
Oh man, I had up to 7 people on my fucking TikTok, and they're all like, "Nope, not that, not this one, pal."
Not that movie, yeah.
Probably because you trimmed your beard.
Yeah, I also trim my beard. I look weird, but it's my hosting duty. So the two commentary tracks are interesting though, because one's like the animation director,
Cool.
Oh, cool.
animation director, staging director, and editor, and the other one is the co-director and just crew. So they probably got Steve Buscemi, if I was to guess.
Wait, crew or cast?
Crew. So maybe just like
Oh.
the guy with the boom mic.
Yeah, he's like, so the
Best
boom
boy.
mic for this animated movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to
Holding it
see?
there in the recording studio. Yeah.
I'd like to see a movie do get all the like crew members and stuff and make like a little short skit thing or something with them that they make as the end credit thing or something, right? So like they get a little shine and shit.
Do you know what? Like for most movies, if they did that, that would be an interesting little thing.
Yeah.
This movie actually has the thing that a lot of anime does. If you buy anime hard copies, it has a special feature that's called joke outtakes, which is just them saying the wrong thing, sometimes a little bit spicy over the animation.
They say the F word probably.
They say the fuck wide. I remember a specific one that was extra hilarious. On the extras for Berserk. I don't know if you guys have seen the anime Berserk, but it's
not yet.
It's long. I would have recommended it for this because it's about as on brand for what we're doing this month as it gets, but it's more of a TV series. If we were going to do it, it's a series of movies now that they like remade it into 3 movies.
I've seen the first movie, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we do a Berserk month. But anyway, my point is they made a lot of really funny blooper. No? Vetoed. No Berserk month.
I didn't say nothing.
I'm not opposed.
But it's great because seeing characters say things that they wouldn't normally say or make pop culture references is chef's kiss.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was one of the Resident Evil movies. They did like a whole reel at the end, or they also animated funny stuff too. I guess because it's a little easier with 3D animation.
When I was looking for this movie last night, I actually noticed that there are a bunch of animated like CGI animated Resident Evil movies that come before the one that just came out that flopped really bad that everybody hates. But there's one set in the universe of Resident Evil 2 from probably a decade ago that doesn't even look anywhere as good as this movie does, side by side comparison.
This movie does look really good for
I was expecting it to be a lot more difficult to maintain my attention in terms of the visuals. There's a few things that I'm like, but overall, yeah, man.
Before we get to that,
nice.
let's talk about let's do our top of the show, our intros, what our history of this movie is. Yeah. Let's start with Kalen this week. I have a feeling it's going to be short and sweet because
you're right. This actually, I think I'm pretty sure this was on Netflix at one point.
It was,
and I'm pretty sure I put it on and fell asleep or something. So essentially, this viewing was my first viewing. I watched it twice. I watched it not last night, but the night before, and then this morning. Visually, it looks great for its time and everything. There were some moments where I was kind of getting lost / confused, which isn't hard to do for me.
but also not to the fault of you, because the movie is a little bit tedious at times. I agree. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming to my defense, Steve.
You're welcome.
But yes, that is my introduction. I will leave it at that and share the rest during the body of the episode.
The old body of the old spirit within, if you will.
Yeah.
Steve, why don't you? I think you have a little bit more of a history with this movie, right?
Yeah. I saw this movie in theaters, actually.
Ooh.
I had sort of like a not as much of an impact in my life in the world of Final Fantasy as you did, Jason. I know you'll probably get to that at some point, but I liked Final Fantasy a lot, and it was when I was quite into anime in general. And I was very excited for this movie. I remember seeing the trailer and being like, wait a minute, this is like the best cutscene from a video game that I've ever seen, but it's going to be a whole movie of it. Whoa! And then seeing the trailer, and I didn't really have a great ear for voices at that point in my life, but even at that time watching the trailer, I was like, I know these voices. These are famous voices from famous mouths. So I got even more excited. And I think I was watching Frasier a lot at that time, so I immediately recognized the one sort of like, I don't remember what her character name is, but like the tough,
the
tough character, the tough lady.
I can see you watching Frasier.
Okay, it's pronounced Frasier, not Fraser. But his producer Ross is the voice of that character, and I was like, whoa, the lady from Frasier is in this movie. It's probably gonna make $1 billion. But yes, I was very excited. I had played Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and I believe I had started 9 at this point in my life. I can't remember the details, but I do know that I was very into Final Fantasy to a certain degree. Went to go see the movie. I believe it came out in the summer, because I have like a distinct memory of going to see it. Yeah, July 3rd, 2001. I have a distinct memory of walking there with my friend Mark, because we lived like far enough away from the movie theater that it was like a horrible journey in the heat, being like, this movie better be the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. And then I went to go see it, and my first impressions as a 13-year-old or however old I was, I spent a lot of the movie unfocusing my eyes and turning to my friend Mark and being like, if you squint a little bit, they look like real people. And I didn't really feel invested. And I remember being kind of bored by it, but I had like jazzed it up so much in my mind that I wouldn't allow myself to leave disappointed. So I convinced myself that it was an amazing movie, and I told everybody that it was so good, and then people would come back to school in like the in the fall, and they'd be like, I saw that Final Fantasy movie, it sucked. It's like, oh, sorry, man.
Everybody I knew saw it, and everybody besides me was like, first of all, what the fuck? That movie sucked, and second of all, I played Final Fantasy 7. That was nothing like Final Fantasy 7.
Does it tie into the games at all?
No,
not really. No. like almost
Okay.
0%. Yeah.
No, and specifically this one is the furthest removed from the things that do
The world.
tie the games together, which I'll get into. Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I was pretty much done. I saw the movie. I pretended like it was amazing, and then everybody told me it sucked, and then I never watched it again until this week. But I will say that so much of this movie has like stayed with me, and not just like it was awoken when I rewatched it, like has stayed with me since I saw it. A lot of the visuals, even the story. I remember hearing the Gaia theory after watching this movie, and then being like, oh yeah, it's like that fucking bullshit movie I saw. And then finding like an easier connection to like reading that theory and kind of like being a little bit more open to it after seeing an entire like sort of mythos built around it. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I can see why they made a whole movie about this. Yeah.
You made an interesting comment in the text chat about I guess it subliminally kind of help guide you to create your own D&D level or world or however you
right. I my campaign has been going on for several years, but they have these sort of miniature arcs in them where there's like a new sort of thing opens up and a new story happens, and one of them almost entirely not like the main details of this movie, but so much of the arc I was like, wow, there's a lot of Final Fantasy spirits within my own story.
Like they probably had a campaign element where they had to go find, because that's the thing that kind of ties this the most to Final Fantasy, makes it feel like you're watching a video game cutscene, is the fact that they're looking for 8 MacGuffins. They found 6 or 7 or 6, and they have to find the last 2. Or they found 5 or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a video game fetch quest that you're seeing the end of it.
It's not. It wasn't like it wasn't like the Doom movie where they literally jammed in. They made the dudes all like beefy fucking Doom guys. The Rock's literally in it, and then they had a first-person shooter fucking sequence.
Yeah, Carl Urban is just chainsawing people.
Yeah,
yeah. No, that was good.
But this was a unique way to do. If you don't mind, I'm gonna say my
go for it,
bit.
man. I've got lots more to say, but go.
When this movie came out, I don't even think Doom had come out yet. So
no, Doom came out much later yet.
Video game movies, like Uwe Ball movies, hadn't even started to come out yet. I don't think. I think House of the Dead would come out shortly after this. And that's a whole other discussion. Those movies are made because of the money he makes to just make the movies, and they can just be trash. But I digress. Before this, there was Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and then some other
Super
ones.
Mario.
I forget the Street Fighter movie. Was it good?
You've never seen Street Fighter?
I remember kind of like pieces, but I like not specifically.
It's okay. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, it's absolutely worth watching. It's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, basically, with Raul Julia as M. Bison, which doesn't make sense on paper, but he's such a fucking good actor that it's amazing.
He's got the face.
Well, I mean, they cast Jean-Claude Van Damme as like Guile.
Was he supposed to be Ryu?
that doesn't. No, he's Guile. That makes almost as much sense as him being Ryu.
It's true. Because he's like, hello, I am from
New Jersey,
and I'm playing. Yes, I am from New Jersey. I am a military captain. It's like, no, you're not. But the other movie was Double Dragon, and that movie is a so bad it's good situation. And when you come out with Final Fantasy the movie, and all the other video game movies are trash except for like Mortal Kombat, like it's pretty good kung fu movie. You go into this thinking it's either going to be garbage or they're going to finally do it because they spent so much money. It's fully CGI. I remember the ad campaign for this had things like they had a viral video thing that was a DVD extra of them doing the Thriller dance, which was one of those first internet videos. They put Aki Ross in like Maxim. They like rendered fucking bikini shots of her and put her in Maxim.
She was in the top 100 hottest babes of 2001.
Because that's what they did in 2001. They still objectified women to the point that they had to make these weird scantily clad pictures of a CGI woman.
The best part of Maxim was the little quips, like the little caption quips.
Like at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, like with picture, like there'd just be like, it wouldn't be like part, like it's just like a little, almost like a tweet or whatever, like a little, or like a comment kind of thing.
So I saw this movie in theaters with my mom. My mom enjoyed it. She didn't have any connection to the other Final Fantasy games. I, however, walked out of it of two minds on the other side of it as well. I was disappointed thoroughly. Couldn't get more disappointed because remember before when I said, yeah, it sucked. I played Final Fantasy VII and I didn't even see the connection. Well, I was that kid, but I was also the kid who by 2001 was a Final Fantasy mega fan. The PlayStation 2 was about to come out, or had come out very recently, and Final Fantasy X was actually on the horizon. Final Fantasy 7 and 8 are two very good games that sort of defined my love of Japanese RPGs, and Final Fantasy IX was a rekindling of my old school love of old school Japanese RPGs from the Super Nintendo era. And this game is nothing like Final Fantasy 1 through 6 and 9, but it is a lot. It is a lot like aesthetically the cutscenes in 7 and a lot of the like character designs of 8. Aki Ross looks like female Squall. Squall's the main character of Final Fantasy 8. There's a shot at the very beginning where she's just like looking, and it's almost an exact shot from Final Fantasy 8 from cutscenes in that. Also, I think the graphics are very like, this is like one step above the cutscenes in Final Fantasy 8, but then done in a movie production setting. So it's much more grandiose. The scenes are much bigger. There's car chases, explosions. It's a lot more, it feels more like an American action movie. And I have this theory that, so when Final Fantasy VII was being made, it historically was supposed to be on the Nintendo 64, but the Nintendo 64 didn't have the RAM or the cartridge space to have what would end up being a 3-disc game. So they went with Sony and went with the PlayStation, and rest is history. But when they were building the story for this game, Final Fantasy VII was originally supposed to be like a film noir set in actual New York City. Like,
that's cool.
So my theory is that when they were making this movie, they took all this like stuff they had made and they were like, well, let's not waste it. And I feel like this movie is what Final Fantasy VII almost was.
Okay.
I have no proof of that. Full fan theory right here. But
old man yelling at
corner.
An alien ghost filled cloud.
Exactly. The main character of Final Fantasy VII's name is Cloud. It's all connected. But what would end up happening is over the years, this movie flopped, but it was not forgotten by the fans and by the company Square Enix, who makes the Final Fantasy series, and also Square Pictures or Square Studios that came up at the beginning. That was were you talking about that on this or before the show about how they
just before? But yeah, Square at the time made a company called Square Studios that was supposed to be a movie studio, and they were going to be paired with Columbia. And they had planned on making not necessarily a sequel, because the sequel was crushed before this movie was even released, but they wanted to allow the main character to appear in other projects. So their plan was to make these other projects, and this main character would sort of be, it would almost be like the template to like a Marvel Cinematic Universe sort of thing.
And I don't know if
stories that take place in the same world.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but around this time, people had a lot of CGI technology was starting to like become bigger and become better at an exponential rate.
Yo, shout out to Beast Wars.
Yeah, and Reboot. But it was becoming more cost effective to do, and Toy Story would come out right around this time too. And once again,
at this point, it was still extremely expensive.
Oh, it was
like, yeah. And the whole thing about this movie is that it was meant to be a ground-breaking sort of revolution in filmmaking, where they're like, look what you can do. You can make an entire movie that is CGI. But I will say, that there were a couple of filmmakers out there who saw this and are still clinging to it to this day. Like Robert Zemeckis has made so many random movies that are, the character designs are based on real actors, but they'll like age them or they'll make them a little bit goofy, like the Christmas Carol and Beowulf, stuff like that.
Well, the point I was trying to get to is people were really concerned around this time that CGI models were going to just like erase actual actors. I remember this came out, and then shortly after they did a commercial with some old school like 1940s actor, but in a modern day commercial, and they were like, "Oh, we can just do that now. Why would we hire actors?" Obviously, that was dumb. Obviously, they're never going to get like actors aren't going to just go away. That's ridiculous. But if you fast forward to now, what they do is they take actors and they age them. Welcome to
or put them into a movie after they died 20 years later.
Put them into a movie after they died,
which is like a new concern, but that's a concern for a different reason. The concern you brought up, it sounded like, are we putting actors out of work? Whereas this is like, are we maybe like going against the wishes of the dead? Like, we probably shouldn't resurrect people.
Is like Jim Carrey gonna have to put in his will, do not make a Mask movie after I die with me in it somehow?
Because I don't want that, but I do
want
to be cremated, so technically I want to be smoking.
Somebody stop me.
You know what's funny? Earlier today, and this happens there's a few like quotes from movies that I just kind of randomly say sometimes in life, and it's funny that you guys bring this up now, because earlier today, I just like out loud randomly was like, I was just looking for my mask. I got it.
Got it.
And you were yelling this at no one, like a crazy person?
No, I was just sitting at and it just said it. Like it was funny. It's funny you guys bring it up.
We should do the mask. Anyway, we'll talk about that at some other time.
Jim Carrey month?
Basically, in summation, I know I went a little bit long, but these are all thoughts that I have been thinking about for literally 20 years.
The only introduction I heard was that you saw it with your mom.
Yeah, I saw it with my mom and would watch it over many years, and I'm not a DVD collector, but I did want to give a little bit of history about why this movie is so significant and also kind of a disappointment, because what would end up happening too is they would make a direct sequel to Final Fantasy VII with the same production, like with the same square of studios, that holds up probably better now because it was only made probably 12 years ago. And then most recently they made a companion movie for Final Fantasy 15 that's like a kind of a prequel, kind of like the events leading up to the game, which looks fantastic. Like that movie, and it takes place before the game, so you don't even need to play the game really to appreciate it. And I would highly recommend Advent Children and I always forget what that's called. The Kingsglaive.
Language.
So there is technically a trilogy of Final Fantasy CGI movies, and they all fit in differently into the Final Fantasy fandom. And I know everything about Final Fantasy, so you're gonna hear me.
All right, geez, come on, put that knife down. And I know everything about Final Fantasy. All right.
You know how Final Fantasy lost me? They almost got me, and then they lost me, and then I never bothered trying to go back. Final Fantasy VII, I'm pretty sure it is for PlayStation. It was on the first PlayStation, right? And he had a big ass, like the cover was this cool guy with a big ass sword, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that shit looks fucking amazing. They put on the game, it's this like little square people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were tricked by the cover art? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover art?
I don't know, man. Like every single video game in the history of video games has cover art that looks better than the game.
Yeah,
whoa!
Lots of movies do as well, and lots of literal
just like the game. I'll get some game. I'll get some games right here.
Okay, so fair enough.
Whatever this shit is, that looks like the game.
That's true. Why do you have an old?
Yeah,
that's like an old school PlayStation.
The picture on the front of Final Fantasy VII is an illustration. It's a drawing. It's not. It's not a graphical representation of what's inside.
It also just kind of looks like the. It looks like the cutscenes.
Yeah.
Because it's literally when you get to Shinra Tower, you get that famous scene.
All right, Shinra Tower,
Oh, you know what? Oh,
Forgot.
you know what would have fixed it? Instead of them making the cover CGI or whatever graphics, they should have just made it like 2D cheapy, like, or like a drawing or whatever, maybe. Because like, I don't know, I just felt swindled or something, or tricked or something. Like, I put it on, I was instantly turned off. It might have been a great game, but it was just, I was so just 180'd, and then I've never bothered to check it out since.
It's most people's favorite Final Fantasy game, and the only one that they've fully remade. Well, that's not true, but the only one that they fully remade with modern graphics.
I tried to play Final Fantasy VI, and I was a little bit too young. Rented it from Blockbuster, put it in, didn't realize, like, it was like, oh, a save game. Okay, I'll go into that, I guess. I was stupid. I played Mario and like F-Zero. I didn't know anything about anything. And then I put this game in, and like, I didn't really know how to read very well. Like, I have pretty, like, I have like mild dyslexia, but like when I was a kid, it was pretty bad. So I'm trying to play this game that is all reading. Yeah, glasses do not help you with dyslexia, man. Well, all the words are being put back together properly. Thank God.
That was the thing with the marketing of Final Fantasy VII that was fully misleading. Was they showed the commercial, it looked like this action game because they show it just the CGI, and it's like, if you can always press the reset button. And it was more to sell PlayStations than it was to sell the game, I feel like. But the thing about it is Final Fantasy VII narratively is one of the best like RPG stories ever made. Cool. And like I said,
they should remake it, but cool.
They did. It's called Final Fantasy VII Remake. And they streamlined it, and it
are they proper size or whatever?
It's more than that. It looks
look good. They look like, it looks like good graphics now.
It looks like PlayStation 5 graphics.
I'm down to check. So you're saying it looks amazing and it's got the best RPG story ever?
Yes. Well, okay. But here's the thing.
The caveat, I
Final
think they call
Fantasy VII Remake only goes up to a certain point in the game, and also they changed the story.
Oh, that's dumb.
Well, but if you didn't play the original story, you would never know, and it's just as good. So
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Anyway, shall we talk about the plot of this movie?
You want to give the synopsis? You want to?
I'm going to do a quick synopsis because it's pretty easy to boil down. I'm not going to do like scene by scene. I'm going to actually read it right from the back of the box just so we can get through it.
I was actually thinking that's what we should do.
There's only
you
6
still
sentences.
Find a way to interrupt.
It's true. I was about to start and you interrupted, but it's cool. So the year is 2065. Okay, this takes place roughly 17 years before Cyberpunk 2077. It's bad math. The Earth is infested by alien spirits, and mankind faces total extinction. Led by a strange team and guided by her mentor, Dr. Sid, which I'll get to. Dr. Sid. Scientist Aki Ross, Sid.
Is he like a descendant of those grungy engineers?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. From Final Fantasy 2 on, every single Final Fantasy has a scientist, usually the creator of the airship in that universe, named Sid. Sometimes there's Sid by himself, sometimes he's a good guy, sometimes he's a bad guy, sometimes he has a cohort like Mid, and in Final Fantasy 15, Cindy.
Well, between good and bad, the other side is always the bad guy.
What?
Whoever you're talking to, like within, so let's say you classify a warring group as good and bad. If you talk to one group, they're good, the other's bad. If you talk to the other group, they're good, the other's bad. So between good and bad, the other is always the bad.
Okay, yeah, except in this movie, it's very clear who's the bad guy.
Yeah, the guy wearing all black that looks literally like Farquaad from Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
He's wearing like borderline Nazi outfit.
Yeah, it's Nazi imagery.
He wears black leather gloves at all times.
And he's always got that like half lit, like that half lighting on his eyes, like so it looks like he's like evil. Anyway, Guided by her mentor, Dr. Sid, scientist Aki Ross struggles to collect the 8 spirits in the hope of creating a force powerful enough to destroy the alien presence and pure enough to protect the planet. Final Fantasy 7.
So I didn't know. I didn't get that connection.
With the aid,
they kind of explain it a couple times. It's
but long-winded way of saying that the Earth has like a life force. And
I kind of want to get into like structurally the things that like bug me, which is this: anytime they have a moment that they could do character development, they jam in a bunch of shit about space ghosts, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I want to see these two characters get to know each other, not again to talk about these fucking phantoms.
But I'm Donald Sutherland, and here's my journal. Look at my journal. It's a.
You know what they said to Galileo, and he said that the Earth wasn't flat. They fucked him up.
But these space ghosts mean
if you're talking about a ghost that lives inside the planet Earth.
Yeah, no wonder nobody believes you.
I kind of want to start journaling.
With the. God damn it! I have one sentence to go. With the aid of the Deep Eye Squadron, Aki must save the Earth from its darkest hate and unleash the spirits within.
Title drop.
I don't even know when the title drop would be in this movie because
there was no.
They didn't say the spirits within at any point. They must have.
They definitely didn't say Final Fantasy.
Reached the final fantasy. Spirits within.
Right? So it's kind of a convoluted thing, but if you are a fan of the series, that's one of the main things that ties this to other Final Fantasy games, because there's a few archetypes.
The Phantoms?
No, the Earth having a spirit that's like a life force. Final Fantasy
Okay.
At the time, Final Fantasy 7 and 8 were the most popular Final Fantasies. And nobody really remembered that there were Final Fantasy games were about the 4 crystals of like earth, water, fire, wind, or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's usually what it's about. But sometimes it's about the earth having a life force and fighting back against machines. Final Fantasy 6 is also kind of like that.
Take that, Avatar.
Yeah. This one kind of falls into that category where it's the earth fighting back against an alien life form that's trying to like suck its life force. But also the humans were doing that clearly because of all the machinery and shit that's been plaguing the planet. Aesthetically, Final Fantasy 13 looks the most like this game. It takes place in this far future. There's spaceships. The aliens in that are like undead ghosts that like rule the earth because the spirits of the people get corrupted and they turn into these horrific monsters. So that's something else I wanted to say about this movie. There's been little bits that they've taken from this movie that show up in the Final Fantasies after it. So up to this point, this movie seemed ridiculous because there was nothing to tie it to. But now, fucking 8 games later, 7 games later, there's little bits from this movie that are sprinkled throughout the games. So it fits better. You know, they like retroactively
like Rebels or Clone Wars.
Exactly.
Where they make the prequels slightly better, making a TV show. Yeah.
This is kind of like the Final Fantasy like prequels.
Right.
Kaylin, you don't have to raise your hand. Just wait till I stop talking.
But it's very hard.
Fair enough.
I have a gripe that ties in with your beginning of the intro there, where the year is 2065. I think Cloud Atlas did this. I'm not sure of any other movies though that do it. I want them to stop making years based on our years and make up like whatever they want to call a year or whatever, right? Like just make up something else, because it ties it into our timeline too closely and takes away a bit of the
even in 2001. I don't believe 64 years from now we would have the technology that they have in this movie.
Right. I gotta say that I think we are like 20 to 30 years beyond me caring at this point, because so many movies have caught up to dates that it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm just like, who cares? Suspend your disbelief. It's an alternate reality where something happened that caused this.
Also, no movie took into account that the people would become so obsessed with internet and phone and social media that technology almost slows down. Is what it feels.
Have you ever
like has
seen
happened.
2001: A Space Odyssey? One of the greatest movies ever made.
It is one of the greatest movies. I hope you're not being sarcastic.
I'm not. And that movie took place in a year that was 21 years ago. And there's people on like commercial space flights and shit. And we're not sitting here being like, oh, this movie really takes me out of it because it's set in 2001.
Dude,
I will
I
say,
thought that
though-
was just the title. Do they say it takes place in the movie?
Pretty sure it's supposed to take
Yeah, I think
place
it's
in
supposed to be-
2001. Yeah.
It was like in the 80s and in the 70s, and in the 70s they thought by the year 2000 we'd be on the moon.
I think that movie was made in 1969.
It was
Yeah.
it was right before, it was sometime around the presidency. It was
What I
right
will say,
before.
Kaylin, that I do
68.
agree with is Star Trek does it right, where they just start the whole thing 100 years,
Long.
100, 200 years in the future. Like the earliest Star Trek stuff is like 100 years from now or 150 years from now. But so at least you can like buy into it. Cyberpunk 2077, I'm playing that, and in 2077 they have all this cyberpunk technology, and then spoilers, they go back to 2013. They do a flashback to 2013, but they still have all the cyberpunk shit, just people have less of it on, like they show people in an audience and they just have less of it. I was expecting them to go out to 2013 and everybody would just be completely normal, but it's still cyberpunk, so you'd have to just, it's an alternate universe.
I mean, I get it. I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Cloud
I'm
Atlas. I'm pretty sure Cloud Atlas did it, which is
Knock
a
on
really good
wood.
movie if you haven't seen it.
Knock on wood, but chances are I will see the year 2065 and it will probably be terrible. And
Oh, I have a fun fact.
Hit
if
us.
you want to bring it over to Cloud Atlas. The only other time that the character model for, what was her name, Aki?
This
Aki
this one,
Rose.
yeah.
Aki, yeah.
Eki Ross.
So, like I said, she was supposed to appear
Aki.
in different projects after this, but the studio was reabsorbed into Square Enix, I think less than 2 years later, because they were like, it's too much money, we can't do this, these projects are too much money. The only other project that she appeared in was a short film that they made as a pitch project for the Wachowskis for the Animatrix, which we were considering doing for this month as well.
Oh, interesting.
And so that it's her basically fighting a bunch of robots in like the Matrix universe. And that was one of the things that they used to be like, so it'll look something like this for the Wachowskis to do.
Did you guys feel a little bit of Matrix in this movie?
I mean,
I couldn't put my finger on it.
It's the music. The music is very reminiscent of the score to the Matrix movies.
What about Batman and Robin? The score
it also
reminded me
feels
of
like the Batman and Robin music. Yeah, but those, it's almost like if there was a stepping stone between the Matrix and Batman and Robin, it would be like this movie is like right in the middle.
I was actually really disappointed with the music in this. Another thing I wanted to bring up during this was that the music of Final Fantasy games is like 40% of the experience.
Nice.
The music in every game, especially the first 10, is done by this composer named Nobuyo Uematsu. And he's one of the most prolific video game composers of all time. And he changed my life personally, and made video game music a viable genre of music to listen to. I still listen to his soundtracks to this day.
Did you ever go to one of those orchestras?
Yeah, I went to the Final Fantasy Orchestra. It's called Distant
Was it
Worlds.
dope?
It was amazing.
I was there. I was with you.
He was there. We were supposed to go to one in May again, but the one that's been pushed back. We're just not ready
years
to go
now. Yeah,
not ready to go sit with a couple thousand people. But the one that I went to, Nobu Uematsu travels with that show and goes to the bigger city ones. And I was walking to my seat, and this short Japanese man like almost bumps right into me, and I look at him and I realize it's him. And then I went and sat down in my seat, and I had better seats than him.
He probably is one of those guys who's like, no, they need to enjoy the show more
I'm
than
down
me.
with that.
He got up on stage and composed the Sephiroth theme.
Yes,
at one point.
And then he made the audience get involved.
Yeah.
He's like, everybody over here say Sephiroth, and then everybody over here say Sephiroth.
So yes,
Did you
I've
say what's
actually
up?
I've seen Distant Worlds twice then because I saw it with you
Okay,
guys, and then I
Yeah.
saw it before that, and he was there at that one. But yeah, he travels with the concert. I've also seen one called Video Games Live, which has remember the show Electric Playground? It was a video
Yeah,
game review
Tommy
show.
Tellerico
Tommy
or whatever.
Tellerico.
Yeah.
He actually composed the music for Earthworm Jim, and
Ooh.
he does a traveling show as well. And
That's a
I was
problematic
watching
game now.
that. I was watching
Yeah.
that show recently.
I used to love that game.
Earthworm
show.
Jim, he rockets through the sky.
But in all reality, nobody support Earthworm Jim anymore. The man who created it is a bad man, and he needs to not make any money off of it.
I didn't know he got canceled. Was he a?
Oh, he's like a horrible homophobe and like sexist. Yeah.
That sucks. That sucks. But Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within only has a guy that shot an innocent person. So.
And then his soul gets ripped out.
And then his soul gets
which
ripped
is
out.
one of the things that I have like an issue with, where I'm like, why is everybody so like hard to convince that the earth has a spirit when there's literal monsters that they call phantoms that are ripping people's ghosts out of their bodies?
I had a problem with that.
There's no way the earth has a spirit.
Because why the woman couldn't just be the fucking hero? They still had to make the fucking big burly man the hero. Like, that irked me. I know it's not that big a deal.
What do you mean at the end?
The ending?
Yeah. How he still saves, like, the man still saves the woman. It's a very like
So I was confused about what was going on there. So the thing was sucking him up, and then she was trying to hold on to him, but then her energy, alien spirit, phantom thing.
All right.
He was sacrificing his soul to carry the spirits into the monster. So
he is literally her spirit companion. It's set up early in the movie.
Oh, right, they said that
he
earlier.
has to go in to like usher her soul, and like so he's like connected to her spirit. So like at the end of the movie, he's ushering the Gaia and her kind of like her 8 spirits up to convert all of the phantom spirits into.
I like that.
Yeah, that's like,
what are you guys,
fine. No. I'm just like, that's fine. And I kind of like the idea that like he's maybe like the 9th spirit within, like where you're like, oh, it's not just 8. Without him, it wouldn't have happened. They needed a 9th one. I kind of like that, but I don't think the "I love you" line really worked for me. I was like, all right. But that's my main issue with this movie, is that I feel completely emotionally removed from everything. I really like the story, but the story, the way it is executed, seems almost like it's like struggling to have its own identity. And I don't feel emotionally invested in anything. And like I said before, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that at any time there's a moment for real character development and character interaction where you can see what these people's relationships are, they use it as an opportunity instead to explain more of the story. It's like, Steve Buscemi at one point is literally like, we're just giving him some time to talk. And he like messes the elevator up or whatever. And they freeze the elevator. And what is it? Instead of them being like, let's reminisce about our past, let's talk about how you found the 5th spirit, who was a little girl who died. And you were like, I just told her that she's going to go back to the earth spirit or whatever. And you're like, give these two some interaction where they talk about their history. Because I really don't know what their history is. I know that they had some sort of romantic, connection at some point, but I don't really know what that was. And I don't even know how they know each other. Like, they could have talked about a mission they were on together to find a spirit, or like when she was doing her early research or something.
Yeah.
And instead of showing me that fucking dream 18 times, show me a flashback of them when they were in the field together, like researching ghosts.
There's actually like a separate video that's like the full dream. That's on this.
I don't think the dream is bad. I just don't think that they need to show me that dream as many times as they did. They showed it so many times.
And does it kind of become more and more kind of like?
Yeah, I get that, but you could have done that 3 times, and I could have gotten the same amount of information from it rather than showing it. It's almost like where they're like, how do we transition here? We'll give another chunk of the dream.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how many dream chunks do we have now? 8. Just the exact amount of spirits there are in the movie itself. Each chunk is a new spirit.
One of my other gripes is the the voice actors or the actors slash the voice acting slash
Really, I don't think I had an issue with the voice acting, but tell me why.
Well,
tell me more.
Not with the acting per se, but with the character design that went with the voice.
Oh,
so
like how Alec Baldwin's character looks exactly like Ben Affleck, to the point that it seemed like they wanted Ben Affleck for that role.
Yeah.
And how
Right?
Steve Buscemi looks
Yeah.
exactly like Luke Perry, and it's almost like they wanted Luke Perry for that role.
Well, he looks like a James Dean mixed with a Luke
Kinda.
Perry.
He
Like,
looks
they
too
kind of
cool
did some
for his voice.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, and I'm not sure if maybe just I know, like, he has a distinct voice and he has a distinct face that goes with his voice. And maybe that's a little bit like creating a bit of a bias, but still at the same time, I think that it's kind of fair to say that someone's physical attributes kind of contribute to their voice as well.
That's
a little
true.
bit,
But
right?
think about it like this too, Caitlin. This was 20 years ago. These actors were 20 years younger. So
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin actually makes a little bit more sense for that, but I do.
Yeah, he
100%,
was super handsome and like
Yeah.
more lithe, because now he's like a
he
bloaty
looks like an old
man now,
bloaty
right?
old man.
Yeah.
But Steve Buscemi, well, I do fully agree with you. If you go back
He
and watch
looks
The
too
Big
cool.
Lebowski, though, he's still a weird, bug-eyed, weirdo looking kind of
Yeah.
dude.
In
But
a
he's-
great way. I love Steve.
But he was still like movie handsome.
He was, yeah. If you look at him when he was in his like early acting days, he's like actually
Reservoir
hot
Dogs?
as hell.
Oh,
You're
Reservoir
like,
Dogs?
whoa.
Yeah,
This
like
guy's hot.
there's that movie from the early 90s that's not Tarantino, but it's a very Tarantino-like movie where he plays like a
that guy sounds
barfly, or
familiar.
he hangs out at a restaurant all the time, and like he kind of like befriends this younger girl. Fuck, I can't remember what it's called, but I remember really enjoying it.
We'll come back to it.
And it feels
I
like
had two. There was two though. There's two that stood out for me. Steve Buscemi and what was it, James Woods or whatever. He just, I didn't feel their character design matched their voice
Yeah, and I think that they did the character design
before.
before they cast people.
But if it's CGI like that, wouldn't it be can't you just like stretch? Like, go to this cheek and stretch or whatever. Like, can't you?
It's
if you've
not
made the
that
whole
simple.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. James Woods for me was more of I couldn't remember who the actor was, because he didn't do his James Woods voice. And in my memory had Professor Sid literally as Brian Doyle Murray, because he has the face that Brian Doyle Murray does in like every anime, where he's like the old guy who talks like this.
Yeah.
You wanted him to be like a Pokemon character.
Yeah.
in this like deadpan serious movie that has like no levity, some guy just like, don't worry about it. We just gotta find the eighth spirit.
By the eighth spirit. I'm Brian Doyle Murray.
I agree with what you're saying, Kaylin, completely. I think that especially because almost every single one of the actors in this movie is a very well-known actor. Yeah. Even some of the random additional voices I was like, that's Reg Barkley from Next Gen. He's in this movie for a second. Keith David. But Keith David's character actually looked like a real person, kind of like, whereas a lot of the other characters looked a little bit off, like especially the side characters. You're just like, ugh.
The further
These
away
look like they're unfinished
main,
character models.
The further away from Aki Ross and Gray, Captain Gray, you got and Professor Sid.
Yeah, everybody got a little bit.
The worse they looked, right down to, I forget if we've already mentioned it on this, or if me and Steve were. That's why we don't talk about things before the podcast. But there was a character on the panel in that one scene where it was they just used the same character model as Sid, like the weird bald dome, but they just had the character aged down a little bit. Like they look the same, they just changed.
Yeah, I was speculating that perhaps there was like a cut scene where they needed a young version of him, like working on his research or something, and they're like, we're gonna cut this whole scene. And they're like, we'll save the model, we could use it as a background council member or something. And you're just like, I don't think that, like, again, because everybody is so recognizable in terms of like what they look like in real life. I think that is something that is beneficial to the Zemeckis movies, which are some of the only movies that try to do what this movie was attempting to do at the time, and have done it in more recent years. I say recent, but like Beowulf came out like 12 years ago now at this point.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
more.
It didn't look very good. It has that
It looks better than this, but it doesn't look
Is that
terrible.
the World of Warcraft? No, that's a different thing.
No, that's the
No,
one with
Beowulf.
Angelina Jolie, and it's based on Beowulf.
There it was like a big person, like a big burly guy or something, right?
It was Ray Fiennes, and he plays Beowulf. He's not like a big burly person, but yeah, he's like it's like a story about a guy who kills a troll, and then the troll turned out to be like the son of some crazy demon or something. He goes there to get the power. Yeah,
it's a really old school story.
It's a story that was literally carved into a stick. Like it's like
Nice.
It's an old English story that they found. It's like a poem. It's a poem basically that they were able to translate and turn it into a story.
Yeah.
But I thought, did Robert Zemeckis do the Polar Express?
Yes, yeah.
And that movie,
he's done all of
the
those sort of like hyper realistic CG movies. He did Polar Express. He did the Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. He did Beowulf. I don't know if he did any others, but I know that he did those three. But anytime that you see a movie that is trying to do what this movie is doing in 2001, with North American actors, where they literally will model everything after the actors themselves. Usually, Robert Zemeckis is involved in some way. Robert Zemeckis also made
in Beowulf,
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is like an early version of like this kind of stuff.
In Beowulf, it's obviously Angelina Jolie as the like witch queen or whatever.
Yeah. John Malkovich is in it. What's his name from Back to the Future is in it. What's his name? The guy who plays the dad in Back to the Future.
Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover. Yeah, he's in it. There's a few other people. Yeah, and they all look exactly and it takes place over a long period of time, so they get to play around with aging them and stuff. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind watching that one again. I don't know if I would want to talk about it, but it's got a good soundtrack. And he kills some
I love a good
fun looking monsters in it.
There was one moment in this movie where I like talked to it, like I spoke out loud to it, and it was kind of funny. The sequence of it was close to the end where she's like or he's like, I don't know how you found it, and she's like, it found me. And then he's like, I see, I understand. And then I'm like, I don't. And then Buddy comes in, is like, well, I don't. I'm like, yeah, me neither. Like
right. It's because it found her in her dream again. She fell in her dream, and then it was like the whole thing was the dream was supposed to be like her connection to the guy and the Phantom guy or whatever.
Also, for the Phantoms to suck your soul, do they need to do it with their mouth, or can they just move through you? Because with Ving Rhames, it looked like it was just getting up, like it was just like its back or something.
I think they just move through you. Because those like the alien one, the ones that are like the more humanoid looking aliens, like they have like a tentacle hand, and like they'll just grab you and pull you out, right? Unless that's their mouth. It could be their mouth.
It bugged me about the big models for the characters, and it bugged me back then, and it still irks me, especially where Hironobu Sakaguchi, the director and creator of Final Fantasy games, wrote and directed this, or co-wrote and co-directed it. But the monsters could have easily been Final Fantasy callbacks, especially the Marlboro character. The Marlboro, you know what a Marlboro is, right, Steve?
The cigarette?
The Marlboro Man.
No, the big.
The cowboy.
No, okay. Without you guys knowing what a Marlboro is,
Is it like one of those giant turtles?
It's bad for you.
It's not the giant turtle. It's the giant plant creature that does bad breath to you.
Oh right, yes.
I feel like that could have been
probably because of those cigarettes.
Well, that's where it comes from. But I feel like they could have put that in there. They could have had like cacti.
Why didn't they use the guy with the big sword? Why didn't they make this a cool movie? Also, so I said this in the text chat. I thought, and you kind of answered already, but I thought Final Fantasy was a woodsy village adventure thing. Like that's kind of what I was wanting, which I think also worked against.
It can be that, but it's not always that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of time stuff in Final Fantasy as well.
There's different genres or whatever.
Final Fantasy 1 to 5 are like medieval, pretty hard medieval spells and magic and warriors and knights.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then Final Fantasy 6 kind of changed it up. It's still kind of like medieval, but it's got steampunk. It's like steampunk.
Is it a linear timeline or
No,
something?
no.
Or
They're
is it
all
just random
they're all
stories?
their own each game is its own universe, and they're only fan theories that have been able to tie anything together.
Connect them?
And
Right.
they fall apart completely. Each Final Fantasy is its own universe, its own game.
It's like when people try and connect every Stephen King book together, and then,
and then Stephen King was like, "Fine, I'll make the Dark Tower, and you can all shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
Is the Dark Tower good?
So Final Fantasy VI, that's when it starts to change a little bit, because the storyline becomes that its magic is dead. The bad guys want to destroy technology, or the bad guys want to destroy magic and make technology the new thing. And it's
industrial age.
Exactly. And then Final Fantasy VII is like, it feels more like a modern, like there's these big reactors and they're sucking the power out of the earth to like make this stuff called Mako energy, which is basically like fracking and gas and pollution and technology. And then Final Fantasy VIII is like in the near future, where there's these schools, and these schools create these soldiers of teenagers that go and fight wars. And then that becomes a giant convoluted story with time compression and a witch from the future. But then Final Fantasy IX is a throwback to those first 5 games, where it's an old
callback
magic and knights and warriors and thieves and stuff. So
there's no one constant character throughout.
So I won't keep going, because each one, it ebbs and flows. There's one that's like in a more Victorian kind of, almost feels like you're in like a place that looks like India, but in like the late 1800s. Cool. You know, and then there's 2 MMOs, and you know, one of the MMOs, that game actually throws all of the Final Fantasy mythos in almost like a theme park, where it's not the actual, you're not like going to the other games, but you are seeing elements from the other games all in one theme park kind of a world that you play with, you know, groups of people. So this, in retrospect, is just the one that takes place on Earth.
Okay.
And it's kind of
You got all that, or is it more confusing than the movie you just tried to watch?
No, I got it. It's let's just I guess the best maybe way to think of it is just one big universe that have different planets with different things going on.
I guess, but even more so, they're in completely different universes too. Like
it's like a
why can't they just be in different galaxies? Isn't there just one universe? That's why.
Then you can find ways to tie them together easier. This way, it's like you literally have to go to another dimension to.
Yeah. Have you seen the Spider-Man movie, Kaylin, the new one?
The Multiverse of Madness?
No, the new Spider-Man, the
No Way Home.
No Way Home or whatever.
Yeah.
So you know how all those Spider-Men come into our world? It's like that.
So I got a question. How come J. Jonah Jameson looks the same, but Peter Parker doesn't look the same?
Well, he just happens to look the same in one dimension. Okay, it's nothing like that. It's like,
I know, I'm just playing.
But it is more like the original Spider-Man. How Spider-Man, original Spider-Man.
You know what I want? Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly. That's what I want.
Well, we might get that at some point, now that there's a multiverse, and now that multiple Spider-Man's like the next.
You don't even need a multiverse. He's in the regular verse.
Well, is he though? He's not. Ben Reilly.
Yeah, he's a clone. We already make sheep, and I'm pretty sure chicken. I'm pretty sure the chicken that I buy, I don't think that chicken's ever lived.
Welcome to Kaylin's Conspiracy Corner.
CC. Oh, it's right. Yeah. C's are fine. CCC.
These are fine. Okay. So Steve ripped up his notes. It's 1:15. We've been talking about this for an hour. I've mostly been talking.
Ripped up the notes I was done reading. I have more notes, but most of it is just me talking structure of the movie and how it fails as a movie, basically. But it's not bad. Like, I don't know. It's just felt the way that you probably felt when you left the theater as a kid, Jason.
Uh-oh.
Hello.
We got classic Steve technical difficulties.
Steve, we're losing you. Don't worry, we'll wait for you.
It's cool. Surprisingly enough, I've mostly it's happening again.
Ooh, shit.
Surprisingly enough, I've mostly said what I want to say about this movie. Oh, he's still in Phone World.
Sort of. I mean, the
Sort of.
picture's there.
It's the same thing that happened last week, big time.
It'll be fine. It's okay. This is ads. Oh, he's moving, and we can see him moving. And he's waving. He's leaving.
It's a close up of my mouth. Hello, Clarice. I ate his brain with fava beans and a nice Chianti. Is this good entertainment? Like, is this?
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. Are we allowed to say fuck? I'm sorry.
You say fuck on Instagram. I don't know what the rules for TikTok are, honestly. I just said fuck on TikTok. My buddy came into my chat and gave me a whole bunch of gifts, so I may have made 20 cents again.
Do gifts cost money?
Yeah.
Ah. And then they can give you money?
I guess.
Do they cost more money than they give?
No, I don't think so. I think it's 1-to-1.
Kind of like at the fair?
No. He has a video that has like 7 million views. He had a viral video.
Nice.
And
I want to
probably your channel was doing well until you had to go and fucking do a sketch with a real joint.
I just need to be appropriate. That's all.
Yeah. I assume Steve's rebooting his internet, so we can just. This will be another one where once it makes it onto the internet, I'll just cut out this part.
It'll be fine. Do you want to do a little bit of karaoke while we wait for him?
No.
Mock.
Yeah.
Ing.
Yeah.
Bird.
Yeah.
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 Mockingbird. Everyone, have you heard?
Mockingbird.
Have you heard?
I'm gonna clip this and put it on our TikTok, and it'll get 24 views. It'll be tight.
Okay. Here we go. Did you say you want me to send you some more? Hey, did you see this one clip?
I do, yes.
Okay.
But I don't.
I think Steve's coming back.
Don't do it here because then I'd have. It's a lot of work to.
I won't. Yeah. I'll do it
on camera.
I'll do it. I'm not even. I mean, does this look like I'm wearing a robe, or does it just look like I'm wearing like a black cardigan?
I can tell it. I didn't think about it until you drew attention. No, not even until you drew attention to it. I was like, is he wearing a robe? And then you were like, does this look like I'm wearing a robe? So yes. I can tell it's a robe. Can you tell this is like one of my nicer sweaters?
I was gonna say you look like you're trying to impress the new job or something. Do you have to go to work?
Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm gonna have to go to the office and do some inventory related technology.
That's when we do things. Do we need to change the day we do things?
I don't know. Oh no. It's 9 to 5 job.
Wednesday night still works for you?
Yeah, once I get more comfortable with the job too, I'll be able to have beers again when I podcast. But for now, unless we do it on Friday night, but I'm not.
Hey, you know what my mom always said? You don't need to get drunk to have fun.
It's true, but I like to get drunk to have fun.
That's a good answer.
But that said,
what's Steve doing?
This job will cause me to drink less for a bit. Oh,
that's
he's
good.
Coming back. Final Fantasy.
Oh, sorry guys. Sorry about that.
What happened?
I don't know. My internet died, I guess. I have bad internet.
I have bad internet too. Kaylin has bad internet.
I won't say the name of the company because I don't want to get sued, but fuck them.
I know what company it is.
Well, maybe if they sponsored us, we could promote them and then they could give us the top-notch shit.
You need more than 2 viewers to be sponsored by anybody.
We'll get sponsored one day.
Especially if those 2 viewers are just you guys.
Yeah. It's true.
What do we need to do something crazy? What do you viewers want? You want some shout outs? You want some free merch? You know what? Fucking all 3 of us will draw
merch.
Picture.
What the hell are you talking about? You're just gonna give them your old t-shirts.
Let's each draw a picture. Or no, so wait. Steve, you like to draw, right?
Taylor, my job is literally drawing. That's my job.
I didn't want to assume.
You might hate drawing.
I'm just very good at it.
Because you have to do it as your job. I remember before you had it as a job, you just liked to draw, and I said you should do that as a career.
I don't
and you were
draw
like,
for fun anymore, though.
you can't draw as a career. You said that to me.
You need to get that back. You need to
And I
get
was
that
like,
back for
well,
sure.
not with that attitude.
Jace, man, do you like to draw, or is there any little artistic hobby type thing that you like to do? Remember Battle of the Bands?
What the fuck is this strain of thought you're on? This is crazy.
Oh, so well,
you like to draw, don't you? Oh, remember Battle of the Bands?
Well, no, because I'm thinking like, so earlier I was like, oh man, what do the viewers like? What's something that we can do to give back? Maybe we can do a shout out. Maybe Steve can draw a little picture of something for them. Maybe I can, I don't know, je ne sais quoi. Maybe Jason can make a little ditty on his
picked
bass.
up my bass in a decade. But no, I see what you're saying. What I will say is, if people want shirts, I can get shirts made. I have a direct line.
Yo, I'll go get Shotgun
made.
Doctor right now. Ooh,
That's what
I think I will.
That's
You got okay. I'll be back.
You don't need to get
so
fine. I won't.
Shotgun Doctor was a band that I had in Halifax.
And the t-shirt is dope as
the t-shirt is awesome. I missed that band. Shout out to Jacob and Josh of Shotgun Doctor, and Colleen, I guess too.
Can I call out shooting someone for waking up?
Yeah, if you want. I was going to call that out as well. It's really insane, and I feel like they probably should have kicked the shit out of that guy a little bit more, but I guess his soul did get ultimately ripped out of his body.
When
Jason
she's like,
took a minute.
Yeah, I forgot about that, even though I had the same reaction. She goes, and he goes, it's a tense situation, to be fair, but it's
also Roz from Frasier gives the slowest ass kicking I've ever seen. It's like she punches him and then kicks him and then does like a really slow roundhouse kick and like knocks him on his butt. And then he gets up and he's like, all right, everybody, this time I mean it. It's like, you already shot someone, man. Of course you mean it. And then he gets eaten by a ghost. Or sorry, his ghost gets eaten by a ghost is what I meant to say.
Jason, are you giving TikTok a dirty look?
No.
Are you giving us a dirty look?
No, I just had a dirty look on my face. I had resting bitch face there for a second.
Resting dirty look?
While I was glancing over at my TikTok phone. But it doesn't matter because we're here to talk about Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, and I'm your host this week.
All right, one thing I want to call out is how confusing that dream recorder heads-up display is. When it's like dream recorded, and she's like takes like 2 squares and puts it into like another square.
Wanted to bring that up
over. I'm like, well, this is like a Final Fantasy inventory system. Well, it sucks.
It's either that or it's a reference to the like the save function on the PlayStation 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I do have some Easter eggs beyond that I did learn that there's a shot of she's wearing a shirt and it's very faint, but there is a little insignia of a chocobo on it. And there's another part with I think he has a cactar on the back of his jacket at one point, which is pretty dope. The cactus dude. And that's pretty much it for actual Easter eggs.
That's kind of cool though, like to think about a Final Fantasy movie that's set in a an alternate universe that's separate from the world where Chocobo exists, in which Final Fantasy might have just been a video game that people really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And like you think about the Marvel universe and even the Spider-Man movie again, like I remember there was an episode of the animated Spider-Man show when we were kids.
So good.
Where he goes to all these different universes and gets all these different Spider-Man, and then he goes to one and it's just an actor who's just playing Spider-Man, and then Stanley's like, whoa, I created Spider-Man. And they like grab him.
Spider-Man's coming.
And he's like, can you do me one favor? I just really want to go web slinging. Just like,
if that wasn't the season finale, it was like the second last episode or something like that.
I think it was late.
It was really close to the end. Yeah, Madam Web and shit.
Yeah.
Yo, I think they're gonna do a Secret Wars.
They are going to do a Secret
There's
Wars.
Actually, literally a show slated called Secret Wars.
Yeah.
This is what I want. I want Spider-Man to get the symbiote and just him and maybe one other villain, but not Venom, Eddie Brock or whatever, just him getting the symbiote and then whatever. Then next movie, Eddie Brock, Venom, him, and then third movie, him, Venom, and Carnage.
It's probably gonna be okay. Yeah,
I didn't bring up Spider-Man to start talking about Spider-Man. Sorry, I was using it as an example as to like.
But it's so good. It's the best.
We can talk about Spider-Man when we inevitably do a Spider-Man movie for this. But if we're gonna talk about other movies, we may as well bring it home.
Okay.
I'm out of things I wanted to say. My point of doing this movie was to talk about how this fails and succeeds as a Final Fantasy film, and I think I did that. And I wanted to give you guys some context to where it does succeed, but ultimately, I think it didn't do what it should have done. And if they would have done what I said, like make the music more grand, put actual things from Final Fantasy in the movie, because if they're just ghosts from another planet, just use the monsters from Final Fantasy. It's fine.
I do have to, I did want to react to what you said about the music, which I do agree. I don't think the music in this movie is nearly as memorable as the music from the games, but I also think that like you're allowed to steep in that music for a long time in those games that are based primarily in video sequences that have no dialogue at all. You know, you're reading, or it's just action moments that are, you know, climatized by the music that's being played around them, and you know they hit crescendos at very dramatic moments. Whereas there's a lot of people having to talk, and the music isn't. You don't get to sit there and like revel in a shop theme, or
that's true. But they do fight. They do have battles in this. They could have.
Yeah, but they're not long battles where you're selecting like selecting your move, and where it's like they have to have music that can easily loop and go for a long period of time. You know?
But at the time, I just wanted to hear either dun 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 dun, dun or dun 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 dun. Either one of those would have worked. But
right, that's true. They could have used
all the
music,
games independent of each other.
So Final Fantasy, you go like when you get into a battle, you go into this like battle sequence, right?
Right.
It's like Pokemon. Have you played Pokemon?
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
It's like Pokemon. You know, Pokemon has like a battle theme when you go into
the little kind of
the screen will like, and then you go into like a fight.
Yeah, like it sees your back, it sees their face. But like all the games are independent, like they're all different, right? They're not connected. So now that I think about it, why would anyone hate this when it's like the games, it's its own thing, right? Is it not?
Because there's I guess there's one point that I didn't hit home enough. Every Final Fantasy game has commonality. Like I said, how every game has a character named Sid. Every game has some form of like airship, which I guess this does with the ship that they fly around in. But every game has this magic that goes fire, Fyra, Fyraga, Blizzard, Blizzara, Blizzaga, Thunder, Thundera, Thundaga, and those exist through all the games pretty much. There's potions, elixirs, high potions. Phoenix Down is a thing that brings you back to life. They exist through the whole series. And then the battle theme, the first 6 and then Final Fantasy 9, they all start with a dun 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 dun. And
that'd be cool. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just little more. There was way less Easter eggs in this than they would put in a Final Fantasy movie if they made it now. There's like no fan service at all. There's no fan service in this movie, which is crazy to me because they needed it to be fan servicey to be able to make more and then make this movie that has like it's called Final Fantasy but has nothing to do really. You gotta.
That's a good point.
They did it in reverse, where the next movie is a direct sequel to a Final Fantasy game. They should have made Advent Children at this point and just tried that.
Hook them in and then
and then do some random
abstract
shit
or whatever.
Yeah, they could have even done, you know, like mild stuff, like the name of the squad could have been named after something in the, you know, something you would hear, you know, like and like, immediately have a connection to.
The summons. There's summons in every Final Fantasy game that are like Ifrit, Odin, fucking Titan.
What is the move that Sephiroth uses when he destroys the planets? Do you know what that's called?
Like it's called like Comet.
Like, why didn't they name the fucking space station after something from the games? It's called
They
the
could have
Zeus
called
space
Zeus
station.
the Zeus cannon. They could have called it literally the Titan cannon or the
Anything.
Ooh,
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they could have called it something. There's no Zeus summon ever.
Yeah, and literally when I think of Zeus, I I get it. He's raining lightning down. It makes sense in
They
terms
could have
of like
called the
what they're doing
Ramu, the
literary, but
Ramu
like
cannon or something like that.
they could have called it anything because it's clearly not just
What's
like
up, Court?
it's not just like it's not just North America that like they globetrot throughout the entire movie, and everything is made up of like sort of like a multi cultural like council or whatever, right? Like the council chambers, like they.
Yeah, but I think all the
It seems like
locations they go to are just in the States.
No. They only New York, I think, is in the States. Everything else is all over the planet.
No, in the desert is Tucson, Arizona.
That's Tucson? Oh man. Okay. I wrote down globetrotting. Cool that they did that. I think she just mentions Russia at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they go all over the place.
They go to San Francisco as well.
Oh,
the first place they
classic
go to is-
movie
Yeah.
mistake.
I think
The whole
that
planet's
the ending,
destroyed.
the ending where they go to the crater. Okay, so something I did notice was the meteor hitting Earth reminds me of the ending of Final Fantasy VII, where a meteor hits Earth, and them going to a crater to fight the final boss. That also happens in Final Fantasy VII, I guess.
Right.
There are parallels there that also didn't notice at the time, but that are there if you look. But it might also be me grasping. You know what I mean? Like there's literally a picture of a chocobo and there's literally a picture of a cactuar in this game. And just, Hein kind of reminds me of Cypher from Final Fantasy VIII. Like he's kind of just like a smarmy dickhead.
Yeah, he's got his boss. His eyebrows are always like,
yeah.
And he always kind of has like a bit of a shit-eating grin on his mouth at all times where he's like frowning but also smiling because he's like, what I just said was dope. When he's like, so if I take a gun and I shoot it at the ground, you're like, this guy's like a real Ted Cruz.
Yeah,
over
and
here.
they keep trying to do little things to make him like, seem like he's got two sides to him, but then he ultimately just does full.
But then he
evil.
also always chooses
like
the wrong
on,
side.
Full
Yeah.
evil. Like there's the point where
Yeah.
he's gonna blow his own head off because he feels bad about releasing
Yeah.
the monsters, and then he's like,
you're like, oh, they're trying to solicit sympathy for this man.
If I'm gonna die anyway, I'm gonna go out with a literal bang. And it's just the
I'm
last
gonna
thing
destroy
you see,
the entire planet.
Yeah. The last thing you see of him is just trying to like that old fucking trope of the villain just trying to jam more power into a thing that can't handle any more power, and it just blows up right in his
I do like that he gets upset with like the pre-recorded voice being like overload. And he's like, I know. It's like, overload. He's like, I know. It's like so
I had one LOL. Well, I had one audible laugh or whatever is when he's like, talk to me, Sarge. Ouch.
Oh, yeah. One goofy joke like that I laughed out loud at too is where Steve Buscemi's character is like talking a mile a minute, and then Jane's behind him. His name's Neil. Also, like that dude's name is not Neil, but
Not a Neil.
Jane's behind him, like not saying anything, and he keeps like over talking, and then he goes, "Keep it down. This isn't the time to talk." And I just thought that was it's a clever. It's dumb, but it's like kind of a clever.
He's like, we can't talk right now. I'm trying to do work. Stop talking to me. But she's not talking to him.
Oh, when he's talking to himself. Yeah. Or well, talking to her. Yeah.
He is supposed to be the comic relief, and like a lot of it falls flat. But there's a couple moments. Like there's another good one where like there's again, it's like a pre-recorded voice being like, proceed to the nearest evacuation area. Proceed to the nearest evacuation area. And then he's like, I think we should proceed to the nearest evacuation.
Well, yeah, and right
it did fall flat. I agree with you there. Yeah.
Right before that, he's the Gray's like, we got to find a way to get out of here. Neil, you're the tech guy. You figure it out. And Neil goes, what do you think? I'm going to just wave a magic wand and it'll get us out of here. And then that's when.
But he doesn't wave his hand. He should wave his hand, and it I think a lot of that had to do with framing and timing. Like I think those jokes
timing
on
definitely
paper,
timing
on paper, those jokes work. but if you don't execute them properly,
No,
when he says, I think we should go to the nearest evacuation area, it should have been a thing where he like slow turns and it like zooms in on him slowly, and then he like takes a breath and then says that line. Then it would be funny. But because it's just like him being like, all right, it's like you're like, all right, our unfunny friend.
It was just mimicking as opposed to
yeah. And what we know about modern movie making too, like look at the debacle with the first Suicide Squad movie where they wanted to do a dark, gritty Suicide Squad, and then the company came in, or the production house came in, and they were like, we want it to be funny, we want it to be like Guardians of the Galaxy, so they just shoehorn in all this bad comedy. This might have been a similar situation where they had a movie ready to go, it was dark, it was like it was working, but then they were like, you know what this movie needs? A bunch of out of place bad comedy, because that's what the people want. And
they want,
it.
give them what they want, Johnny.
If they don't have that, they don't got nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, no kind of like shade towards the voice actors either, because I think that every single one of them,
great.
like I have always liked Ving Rhames since I was a kid. He's been in a lot of stuff that I have really latched onto, in terms of like almost like sort of it's imprinted onto my identity. Like for a very long time, I was considered like, oh, Steve loves zombies. Like I would get like weird gifts that were like zombie themed gifts for a while. I'm like, what? Why am I getting all these zombie gifts? And like, you love zombies. And I'm like, I like zombies, but I don't love them. But I did like, I really liked the first Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead. I thought it was like amazing when I was younger. I still like it a lot. But Ving Rhames is like the main character in that movie. So I had a lot of like Ving Rhames love, and so anytime I would see him in a movie, I got excited. I'm like, yes, it's Ving Rhames, my favorite zombie fighter.
And
He's
his
back.
his character in this, if you're a diehard Final Fantasy fan and your favorite
Looks like Barrett. Like he looks like Barrett.
His characterization is Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. Just like
that's
a
definitely
smooth talking, like
so
yelling all the time.
But he also looks physically like the way that they built him. Like he looks like Barrett's sort of like physical build, and even his haircut is the same and
similar. And I remember seeing him in magazines because they did they would do multiple page spreads of this movie in video game magazines, like they would do the actual video games, showing the character designs and like giving away little bits of the story and stuff. And I remember seeing him and being like, oh, this movie's gonna rule. They're gonna have all the Final Fantasy archetypes, but then nobody else on that team, like Aki Ross kind of reminds me of Terra from Final Fantasy VI, kind of. But the other three, Gray, who's supposed to be like the main character, secondary main character, like action man, is so North American. And then Neil and Jane are like just antagonists to one another, basically. And they're just the most generic.
It's called upper body strength, Neil. Get a girlfriend.
Get a girlfriend. And then they don't even pay that off with them kissing. Come on.
But they are there together. They die together, and I think that they're supposed to be very good friends. I don't think that there's supposed to be any romance between them. I think that they are like best friends.
It kind of reminded me of what's his face and what's her face from Aliens.
Well, yeah, the whole squad is like supposed to be based on the that's like another issue that I was saying earlier, where the movie has an issue with grasping onto its own identity or creating an identity. Is like a lot of stuff is like wholesale pulled from other movies, like the squad stuff.
Not in a good way.
They don't even really, they don't even really try to make it different. It's just like, no, you've seen it before, and you'll see it again in this movie, Final Fantasy: Spirits Within. And like as I said before, like there's a lot of aspects of this movie in terms of like the overarching story that I really really like, but there's stuff that just really falls flat. Like I didn't feel anything for any of those characters when they died. Except for maybe Ving Rhames' character, because he like does a heroic thing.
Yeah,
and then he's like,
the day.
He did have the bad,
and the way it comes up around him is like it's like tragic in a way, because you know he's dying, but at the same time, there's absolutely no way he can get out of that. You're never going to be like, this is what I would have done to get out of that. It's like, no, he's got a metal pipe through his body and he can't move, and it just engulfs his whole body.
Engulfs.
Yeah. And Steve Buscemi's performance is fine. Like I don't think that he didn't seem like he was phoning it in at all. But again, a lot of his humor, which is why they hired him, right? Like,
I felt he toned it down too much.
I mean, I thought it was on par. It's because you don't have his physicality there. You don't have it being paired with him. Like if you saw him recording it, I guarantee you he's like doing looks around and like bug eye stuff and like
That's
he's probably selling it.
Yeah.
But because the character's like some cool short guy who's like,
it's what you said
like
earlier.
it doesn't work, right?
It's not animated to his face at all.
Yeah.
It's just
mannerisms,
animated. Yeah, it's just animated, and then they did the voices after the fact, probably.
Yeah.
Which is rare because usually they do all the voice acting first and then animate over top, which is what I thought they did for this. And I was reading because I wanted to know before we started, because there's a little bit of lip syncing issues throughout, like where things just don't quite match up. And I was shocked to discover that this movie was only recorded in English first. So like they did all the animations based on the English dub.
Okay. Yeah.
And so if there is any other dub, if there's a Japanese dub, it's going to be dubbed in Japanese, but it's going to have to sync up with the mouth movements of the English speaking cast.
Right.
And I think that was, you know, part of their plan to be like, we've got to make sure that we sell to like the biggest, fattest idiots on the planet Earth, North America. Yeah. We got to get them on board, and then the rest just fall down like dominoes.
Yep.
All right.
So let's go into our final thoughts, just because I have to. We're almost at 2 hours. We're in an hour and a half.
I think we're at final thought territory anyway.
Yeah,
let me just run down this list real quick here. The gun sounds are cool. The gun sounds are very cool. I really like the gun sounds.
Is this your final thought, or is this going to?
No, this is just me going down through my list, and then
what if you do your list and then your final thought?
I'm the host. Dude,
my bad.
Why don't you do your final thought? Where's it going?
Was it because of me?
Almost definitely.
Is he peeing? Did I ruin it?
I think you broke the podcast.
I'm sorry, Steve.
This podcast is broken.
I was gonna say to Kaylin, I'm the host. So to Steve, run down your list, and then please give us your final thoughts.
My apologies.
Ming-Na Wen, very good, amazing actor. She's in so many cool things. She's been in so many cool things recently, and has been in cool things since I was a kid. She's the best. Mulan is one of my favorite Disney movies. My favorite Disney movie
at this point too.
At this point, it's Ming-Na only.
Yep.
I've never been.
Oh. Anyway, very good, and also Boba Fett is great. Mandalorian is great. She's in both. Check them out. Ving Rhames, love him. I already went through that, but I do love him. One of my favorite lines from Dawn of the Dead is he is looking for, he's like just gonna leave, and then one of like the punks is like, you're just gonna leave us? And he's like, you want me to give you forgiveness? Go into that stall, wipe your ass, say 5 Hail Marys, and then you and God can call it even. He's so cool. Steve Buscemi, good. Keith David, always good. This is our 3rd Keith David movie, I think.
Yeah. So They Live, right?
Yeah.
And what was the second one?
With Mononoke.
He was in last week's. Yeah.
He was
the
true.
pig
And
god,
also, Princess Mononoke, I guess they're having an anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Princess Mononoke.
You guys have been married for so long. I like that they had different armor for different situations. When they first come down into the city, they're wearing the armor. In my Zoom call, sorry, I'm pointing on Instagram, being like, you guys know. But then later when they go to like the graveyard or whatever, like the site of the first battle, they're wearing different armor. I'm like, oh, they have different armor for different situations, and all of it is dinged up, so it just looks like they it's a little bit of world building without having to explain it, which is something I appreciate, because this movie explains way too much to me all the time.
The second armor was like lightweight or something, like it was
lighter.
Like the half skull, cool looking.
With
they're in the desert.
Mm-hmm. I was also going to say that the armor, a lot of the like designs in this movie, I can see it in other stuff, even up until recently. The ships look a lot like Prometheus, the Ridley Scott alien movie that came out not too long ago. As well as, you know, that ship that they get lowered down into at the end, like to go into the crater. Yeah.
Before we move on from the costumes, I just wanted to say that that's one of the biggest thing. That's always been one of the biggest ties to other Final Fantasies for me, because his suit at the beginning that has like the red on the shoulder looks like Biggs and Wedge from Final Fantasy 7 and 8. And then the guys in your background, they're like stormtrooper look. That's a constant. Even in the old medieval Final Fantasy looking games, the soldiers would have like a soldiery version of almost the same,
like the owl eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
that's also
through
like
every
these
Final
guys in the Gears of War game, like they're almost identical.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna. Okay, yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I just
you're gonna
so
say.
I'll kind of add it on to like when I do my little final thing, but as I was watching this movie, there was bits and pieces like, why does this feel like something else? Like it like it's called Final Fantasy, and again, I guess like I kind of came in with a bias, but like it's called Final Fantasy, so I've had, I guess, a certain image in my mind. And then there were like these tech guys. So Steve, on your cam there, I want to say Spectral, but I don't know if that's a thing. I think you said a Gears of War is probably the game I was thinking of. But there is a lot of aspects of this movie that reminded me of so many things. Nothing reminded me of Final. Like, well, I didn't even. Again, my only real thing of Final Fantasy at the time was the cover, the dope ass cover with the cool sword, and then like the village, adventuring or whatever. Sorry.
And I think a lot of people had that in their head, but
yeah,
Final Fantasy 7 and 8 had been out so recently, and this, like I said, those were the two most popular games around this time before 10 came out, and this draws mostly from those two games as the aesthetic. And they wouldn't do a full-on hyper futuristic looking Final Fantasy until 13, which is like a decade after this. It's like 2013.
The hair is bad. I said already that everybody has like
their hair,
very short hair. Anybody except for the main character has hair that doesn't move, or they're moving so statically.
But they're soldiers.
Their hair doesn't need to move. I know that, but like even the other female character on the squad has like her hair pulled back like so tight that her eyebrows are like vulcanized. And I know that it's because they hadn't quite figured out the hair animation. And there's one shot in the movie where the hair looks really good, and it's when she's having like a heart attack or whatever, and she trips and her hair like moves around. Yeah, and it moves around very naturally. And I like looked at it, I'm like, that's the money shot of this movie. They probably spent more on this scene, this one shot here, than the entire rest of the movie, because they're just making like big gelatin ghosts that you can see through for the majority of it. And like that one hair shot, because you look at every other moment in the movie when her hair moves, it's like it's all just stuck together like an accordion almost,
static,
right? So I bet, like, and then you look to like Monsters Inc., and that's when they sort of, I think, figured out hair technology, or like fur technology, at least, where they're like, we understand fur now, and that's how they were able to make Sully. And
more
it's like,
pixels.
Yeah, all you need to do is add more pixels. Like you sound like an art director coming into a room being like, more pixels. And everyone's like, we added as many as we can. You're like, more.
Spend less money.
That's how
get more
you
pixels,
solve the hair situation.
And Jim Carrey just
nowadays they can make hair easy because there's like a bunch of programs and software that are designed to just do that.
How is Jim Carrey going to be so cool and then go and do Sonic 2?
Sonic 2 looks dope as shit.
There's aspects of it that look dope as shit. But how is Jim Carrey going to be so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Perfect Mr. Robotnik? A perfect Dr. Robotnik?
What is this? Like third eye.
Philosophical?
Yeah. Philosophical.
He's got to get paid. Cool. His job is to make money doing movies.
Yeah.
He's gonna
Maybe
take
he
the
likes
most-
Sonic. Maybe he really liked Sonic
He
when he
made
was
that-
making the mask. He was playing Sonic.
He made that
Did
you guys see
character
the
his
first
own
one? Was it good?
also. The first one was
It
fine.
was fine.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't bad, but it's like, you know, like it's one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, oh, good. I will never watch this movie again. And
All
then
right,
you
same
turn
that
thing.
off the list.
The second one
Yeah.
will be like, oh, cool. This time there's Sonic and there's Knuckles, and Knuckles
It's
is a
Knuckles
bad
and
guy
Tails.
till
Yeah.
halfway through, and he's not.
I mean,
a
I
bad
did
guy
get
anymore,
sort of
just like the
excited that I
game.
saw Knuckles in it, but I was also like, but I don't even care about Sonic lore.
Hey,
I know who
cool. They
Knuckles
have
is.
they have the big Robotnik from the end of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Cool. I saw it. Next.
So anyway, the last note that I have is, oh my God, we ended with another tentacle mass. This is the third movie in a row where the end of the movie has a big tentacly mass.
What we
of
should call
gross
this
shit.
it is not animated features for older teens, I guess is what it really is. But just
Yeah.
tentacle monster final boss animated
Yo,
features.
is there tentacles in next week's SP?
No, but there is an episode
What about
of South Park with where he literally becomes a Akira monster. So, oh, the
Nice.
clitoris.
yeah? Maybe it has tentacles underneath its bump.
We'll have to talk about that next week when we start. When we transition from our animated films for adults to my birthday month.
Happy early birthday!
It's not even close. It's over
Yeah,
a
we
month
could just
old.
That's
wish
why
him
I
happy
said
birthday on
early.
his birthday. It's fine. That's all I had for my notes. There's some
So
other ones, but
Why don't you? Speaking of transitioning, why don't you transition to your final thoughts?
all right. So, the movie Final Fantasy Spirits Within. It is watchable, but as Kaylin said and I said, we both have watched this movie and fallen asleep while trying to watch it. Or wait, was that? Did you say that?
Yeah. I did say that. Yeah.
And I tried to watch this movie a couple days ago to kind of get the jump on it, and I was a little bit tired, a little sleepy, and I fell asleep within maybe 15-20 minutes. And I think
4 o'clock in the morning.
it was not 4 o'clock in the morning, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was like my first day off.
That's
in a few
super
days.
late.
And I was like, yeah, it's like way later than I should have been stayed up till. No, I had just like woken up early and just checked some things and was like, I'm so tired. This week has been killing me. And then I put it on and I was like, I'll just put this on and take some notes. And I woke up and it was like the mountain at the end. The mountain looks great, by the way. Also, you should say no photos were used in the making of this movie. Everything that is a background image is matte paintings. So they did it like a traditional movie. So rather than have any kind of photorealism, they're like, no, only paintings, because everything's going to look sort of off. So everything has to look sort of off.
Yeah, that shot of
That's
Earth
a good point.
when they go up
Yeah.
in space and there's just like Earth and the moon. I thought it was really
Yeah, it's all
good.
matte paintings. It's really great.
Sweet.
It is a groundbreaking CGI movie, and I think that without this movie, a lot of technologies wouldn't exist that are still used today, mostly in video games. There are some that are used in film still, but a lot of the technologies that are used were developed by Pixar, with a few that were highlighted by the Square Studios that were created specifically for this movie. I do kind of like wish that studio stayed open for a little while longer to see what they could have made, because you don't see this kind of stuff anymore outside of the Zemeckis movies that I was talking about, and the weird sort of like the Resident Evil movies that come out every once in a while.
They made a
That are-
Yeah,
Quest
Resident.
movie.
Yeah.
It's all
Dragon
straight to
Quest Your
DVD.
Story, yeah,
and
like,
even Advent
recently.
Children I don't think had like a real theatrical release. It was
No.
just like
Neither
it
did
just came to
Kingsglaive. They were just things.
yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because like those movies are banking on the video game fans, whereas this movie was banking on like having a gimmick, which was like the first movie that's ever doing what it's trying to do. And I think that's
Plus
one of the
the
reasons that
actors.
and the actors, yeah, but you can cast anybody for anything, right? So like I think that they were banking on this being such a spectacle that people were going to demand more. And as much as it was a spectacle, it really just like it fell flat in the storytelling. The story feels stunted and tedious, and the characters themselves have emotions, but I don't feel connected to those emotions, and I don't feel invested in their stories. I think the character I felt the most invested with was Donald Sutherland's character, and it's just because he seemed like he was the most defeated, where he's like, my whole life has gone by and I still haven't proven that Gaia exists. And you're like, okay, well, I guess this is your story, man, because like everybody else is just, you know, trying to not die or save the planet, and he's just like, I just need to prove my theory. The movie is, again, like I said, it's watchable, but I wouldn't say it's good and I wouldn't say it's bad. I think it's a thing that if you're interested in Final Fantasy, you probably will have no business watching this movie as well. Like, it doesn't really even bring in that crowd.
Not start here, I'll tell you that.
As Jason said at the beginning of this podcast, this movie is a relic, and I think it is deserved of study, as all relics are. But at the end of the day, you don't study relics for fun. You study them to learn from the past, and I think that that's what this movie is. It's a relic that is something that we should look on and realize that it did things that nobody had done yet, and we can learn from that.
I think to that point, it does fit with the theory of this show, which is random movies that people should watch, or just, hey, have you seen this movie? Like, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where me and Kaylin, what we wanted to do with this show, you know, just that's why the theme months are have become so much fun, because we can pick 4 movies that we ask each other, have you seen this one? And Kaylin is one of those people that's seen every movie, and Steve, you're similar in that respect. And the fact that Kaylin hadn't seen this movie, you know, and there's been other ones that I haven't seen, or, you know, the John Carpenter month, I basically hadn't seen any of those, and I love all of them now.
They were,
So I think
and I mean, that's exactly what I think I'm going to say about this movie, is that, you know, I typically don't give it a number rating, but I will say that I recommend this movie if you're interested to look at the early days of realistic CGI in terms of a cinematic release, because I don't know if we're ever going to get anything like this, especially after what Zemeckis has been doing. It is 100% groundbreaking. You think about the Pixar movies that came out just before this; they couldn't figure out how to make a human look human. You remember Toy Story? What Sid looked like? He looked like a gross
Toy Story. They didn't even
horrifying
show the mom.
monster.
He looked like a doll. He looked like he looked like the doll that he fucked up, but with a body or whatever.
Yeah, the toys looked more human than the humans in that.
Yeah.
But this movie did an admirable job of, you know, making us believe that we were watching Ben Affleck voiced by Alec Baldwin on screen, and I'm gonna recommend it. But at the same time, I'm gonna recommend it with the caveat that when you're going in, you probably won't enjoy it. It's just an interesting thing to consume and to realize exists. Because without this, I think that a lot of things probably wouldn't have happened as fast as they did, at least. And for my rating, I give it an infinite amount of weird elephant-faced monsters with feathers on their shoulders colliding into another infinite amount of those same things, creating one single alien Gaia intertwined with the Gaia of Earth. Our Gaia, our human spirit at the center of our planet. That's the rating I give it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Would the Earth have a human spirit or just a spirit?
No, the spirit of the Earth is its own thing. We're part of that spirit. It wouldn't have a human spirit. It would have a spirit of every worm, bug, fish, mammal, and, like, you know, dusty ass human like you.
They didn't want to shoot the Zeus cannon because Sid hypothesized it would destroy the spirit of the Earth, but really it did not do that. It made the spirit of the other planet stronger, sort of, or something.
But
Anyway,
it also revealed the planet spirit.
that's true.
Him shooting that is what opened up the crust, and then they were like, "We're looking at the Gaia over here,"
That's true.
and everyone was like, "Whoa, the Gaia!"
We're looking at Gaia over here. It's a ghost of another dimension.
Anyway, I sit back now and
Kalen,
hand it
Hoy.
off. to
why don't you
whomever.
tell us your final thoughts and your rating, or whatever you'd like to do?
Hoy hoy.
for this
I
film.
shall do just that. Yes, I'm gonna, I think, reiterate some of what Steve said there. So watching this movie, like visually, it did look really good. I did like the sound, like design and production throughout. There aspects of it anyway. There was other parts. Like there was moments where I was taken out of the movie and thought of Batman, which kind of threw me off. But there were other elements where I was like, okay, good job. It did for its time, like watching it now, it's like, okay, this would have been groundbreaking for its time. It did look good. I agree with Steve that nothing made me invested with any kind of character in it. So like, not to shit on it or anything, but I didn't have a connection to anyone, and didn't really overly care about the outcome at the end of it. Like, and also was kind of confused throughout. But I think it's important to have movies take the first step. As in this, like there wasn't much before this, so it's kind of setting a bar and doing very well in certain parts and trying to find its footing in another. Steve, like you said, like it trying to find its own identity. It was taking, like, and I said earlier, like as I was watching it, there were bits and pieces that just reminded me of other things, and nothing specifically made me think of Final Fantasy the game. I don't know, like I've never played the game, so I don't have any kind of objectional kind of opinion in regards to comparing this to the games. But if the games are their own thing, then this feels like, you know, I guess just a long cut scene of taking a break between one game to the next or whatever. The I mentioned about the voices. Everyone killed it as far as, like, I guess performance, you could say. And I think you might be right that the design was done before the talent was brought in, which could have helped heighten, I think, the overall feng shui of the movie if they actually married the two, as opposed to just doing one and then doing the other, if that was the case. As far as just watching a movie, I'm glad that I did watch it. It was an enjoyable watch, generally speaking. I did find myself getting lost a little bit. And at the end, it kind of felt less than rewarding. But it was worth a watch, and I would give it I just played a whole bunch of a game, and I want to take a little break and transition into the next game I'm about to play, and this is what I put on.
Fantastic.
This is your cutscene. This is the cutscene between games.
A big ass cutscene. Yeah, that's
right.
what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's very insightful. No, like the good stuff in that final thought. I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I find this to be one of the more as a huge fan of video games, and especially the Final Fantasy series. Reading the internet came out as we know it today, right around this time, right around 2001, started to evolve into what we know it to be today. So when this movie came out, I was able to like go home and like read what people thought about it, which was like new at the time. It was a new concept to like immediately be able to see what people thought. And for the last 21 years, people have just been like, it was such a miss. But also, somebody like me who's such a mega fan, I've been able to dig into this movie over the years and find the little nuances that I pointed out. And it retroactively works really well as a Final Fantasy because they managed to put in stuff into the games so you can, find little Easter eggs. Like there's a spell there. Paladins in Final Fantasy games now always have a move called the Spirits Within.
Nice.
For whatever reason, probably because of this movie. And it's
let's give it some help.
It's little things like that that make me love this movie. And watching it on a 4K TV on a Blu-ray makes the movie hold up. You do see the jank, you do see the relics of the past and old CGI, but this, like Steve was saying, the money shot moments in this movie, when that fucking Zeus cannon blows up, it's one of my favorite shots of the whole movie. Her hair effect, I can't believe that they bothered putting that in, but they had to because of how groundbreaking this.
Because they spent $200,000 on it.
On 1 second of footage.
Yeah.
So if this movie was called like just The Spirits Within, and you know what I mean, and wasn't a Final Fantasy,
or its original title, Gaia.
Save Gaia, live fast, or whatever.
I'm not even joking. That's what the original script was called for this
Gaia?
movie. Yeah.
Well, if they had called it and it wasn't related, and if it was still like, obviously it was always going to be Hironobu Sakaguchi who made the movie, the father of Final Fantasy, people would just be like what he does now is he still makes video games just for his own company, right? He's not with Square Enix anymore.
2 seconds.
Yeah. So if this was like from the creator of Final Fantasy, a movie that has nothing to do with Final Fantasy from Squaresoft Studios,
doesn't it kind of feel like that's what it is though, where like they're not good, they didn't make it from the creator of Final Fantasy comes a movie. But I also remember around this time as well, in theaters in North America for a long time, they had Final Fantasy The Crystal Chronicles, I think is what it was called, advertised in theaters for like a couple of, like, at least a year after this came out.
Game?
Yeah, it was being advertised in theaters, like on the big, and it looked horrible because it was like terrible GameCube graphics, like blown up at a rate that you should never look at GameCube, like hurt your eyes to look at it. You're like, why are they showing
That's neat. I don't think we had that in Halifax because our theaters are all privately owned, where you guys have the chains. We didn't have like a chain.
I feel like it was probably a thing where Columbia and Sony were connected, and they let those advertisements come in because of this movie, right? Like he essentially gave them the rights to like Final Fantasy movies in North America. And I think worldwide, except for outside of Asia, they were allowed to distribute, Columbia was, like, for all of these projects that were supposed to come out of this company.
Okay. Well, that, like if that's true, then they clearly had a roadmap. Yeah. And it kind of just fell on its face because nobody gives a shit. But I think, I don't know, I think calling it something different might have actually helped it. And just don't even mention Sakaguchi, and that would just be an Easter egg to people who know who he is, to go see that and be like, wow, really? To the presentation of this was like the Final Fantasy that broke ground. That's where it kind of falls short for me. And then the story's kind of basic. The characters are all pretty one note. Like Captain Gray is really just like, I am man character. And Aki Ross,
everyone's boring in this movie.
Aki Ross is really the only like real nuanced character, and I guess Sid to a lesser degree, but she's just like, I have to find the spirits, and that's
Sid was Sutherland.
I would argue that Sid is more nuanced than any of the other characters.
Sid
is probably
was
the
my
best
favorite
character in the movie.
Yeah.
So before we all start talking over me, I'm just going to.
We already did though.
Yeah, I know, and I just want to finish my thought here.
Sorry.
rewatching it now. I haven't seen it since I bought the DVD a few years ago, and rewatching it today, I felt when I got the DVD, I was like, oh fuck, this movie really holds up. This is awesome. It looks great, blah blah blah. But today I was picking it apart for a review, and I didn't have the same love
Lens.
that I once did. So I'm only going to give it a 3.6, a very loving 3.6. That's probably even a little bit higher out of 5. That's probably even a little bit higher than I should give it. But it does hold a very special place in my heart, and I, as a Final Fantasy fanboy, it is culturally relevant to me in a major way. So yeah, that just about does it for us here tonight. Thank you for indulging me. Also, I'm not going to come out and make you guys watch Advent Children or Kingsglaive.
Oh, I've seen Advent Children. I like.
Should we do a video game movie month?
Oh, God.
Well,
yeah, sure.
We have a
Maybe we do it the same month that Super Mario Brothers movie comes out.
Yeah, and do the
There's
original
another
Super
one?
Mario Brothers.
They're making one right now.
They're making a CGI one. It's going to be way better. It's going to have the Sonic the Hedgehog.
No, man, that original one was so bad it was good.
I love that movie. I actually legitimately love that movie. I think it's a so bad it's good production nightmare, great behind the scenes story. Production.
Yeah, it's a good tale. It's a good tale from Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we'll end it here. We went. I didn't think we were gonna make it because I didn't have as much to say as I normally have to say, and this is one of my favorite franchises. But I recommend to Kaylin play any Final Fantasy game, and I recommend to Steve watch Kingsglaive.
How come
it's the only one I haven't seen?
Because I wanted one recommend. Fine, both of you watch Kingsglaive. I don't care. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, Jesus, fine, Kaylin, you can take the Kingsglaive.
How come he can't play Final Fantasy?
I've already done it.
He's played multiple.
You stinky bitch.
Hey, you know what? I didn't put deodorant on today.
For Jason and Kaylin, for Steve and Kaylin. Why am I saying my own name? For Steve and Kaylin.
You weren't.
I'm Jason.
For Jason, for Kaylin, I am Steven.
And for Steven and Jason, I'm Kellen.
And hey, guys, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
God, he's covered in blood. Somebody call the police.
You want to know how I got these scars? And hey, why so serious? And hey, did you see this one? I've been wanting to do that all week, and it didn't go as well as I wanted. So that's the show for this week, and thank you for watching. And of course, as always, poop your pants and pee on that poop. Bye.
Do it.
That's my favorite.